All right, welcome back. Let's talk about notes and sounds on the piano. This is part 2 of a 10-part series on keeping music theory on the piano as simple as possible. In part 1, we answered the simple question, what is music theory? And in part 2 here, once again, we'll be talking about piano notes and sounds. Let's do it.
Much the same with the alphabet or letters being the building blocks of words and language, notes are the most basic building blocks of music. So let's talk a little bit about what a note is. See, all sounds are vibrations which travel through the air and they vibrate our eardrum, and then our brain interprets that vibration to the sound that we hear. If something vibrates really, really fast, we hear that as being high-pitched, high, high, high. If something vibrates slowly, we hear that as being lower-pitched, deeper sounds, okay? Let me go ahead and demonstrate this for you on my daughter's ukulele. If I plug this string right here, which just happens to be a C note, this string itself is physically vibrating. Here, let me get closer to the camera so you can see this. On a stringed instrument like this, we are literally just plucking the string and immediately causing the vibration, which once again travels through the air, vibrates your eardrum, and that's the sound that we hear. I can make that same string vibrate twice as fast, and you're going to hear a higher pitched note. You hear that, how that sounds like a higher pitch than this right here? That's because of a different rate of vibrations that we're hearing. Now on a piano, all the sounds are completely in order, and the ones all the way over here are much higher pitched than the ones way down here, right? If I play something down here, it's much higher pitched than down here. And that's because these sounds, these vibrations that are happening when I play notes over here are just vibrating much, much faster than the sounds over here. So that's how all sound itself works. And whether that vibration is fast or slow, the key with a note is if it vibrates at a consistent rate, that's when we have a note. So in music, how many individual notes do we have? On the one hand, if you understood what I said about a note just being a consistent rate of vibration, then you may be thinking there are possibly an infinite number of notes. But on the other hand, you see this full-size keyboard that I have here, which has 88 keys on it. So you may think, hey, maybe there's 88 notes. Well, yes and no. As it turns out, if a sound vibrates exactly twice as fast as another sound, our brain interprets that as somewhat the same sound, but just different pitches, all right? So on a piano, this note right here, this is an A, all right? Just look for any 3 black notes, kind of draw a line down the middle, and then your first note, that's an A. Well, guess what? This is also an A, and this is also an A, all right? The sound that comes out when I play this A versus this A, this one is just vibrating twice as fast as this one, all right? And this one is vibrating twice as slowly as this one, and so on. Now, if we want to get a little bit technical, now, just so you know, the actual rate of vibration, this note right here, the A right in the middle of a piano, vibrates at 440 times per second. So it's very, very fast. It's vibrating 440 times every second. You may have heard the term hertz. That's what hertz means, is times per second. So it's 440 hertz. So this A over here is actually vibrating at 880 times a second. This one is 220 times per second. Those numbers are not super important, but hopefully it can help us kind of understand these notes and why we have so many of them. But I don't know about you, I'm very visual, and I think I need to go ahead and draw this out on a piece of paper so you can see exactly the answer to how many notes do we have. So let me go ahead and get out some paper. That's not going to do it. That's not big enough. Let's try again. We're getting there, but I want to go bigger. Let's go bigger. Now we're talking. All right, let's draw this out. Let me rearrange some things here. Okay, well, let's just start with any random note. This line right here is going to represent that middle A that we were referring to, which happens to be vibrating at 440 times per second, all right? This is an A. Well, if we go to the next A over here, then this is just vibrating twice as fast at 880. And then we have another A over here, and there's really an infinite number of A's in either direction, but the ones closest to the middle are the most commonly used. And so we've established that this and this are basically the same note. They're both A's. How many notes do we have in between? Well, you could have an infinite number of notes because there are an infinite number of numbers between 440 and 880. We could have 441 hertz, 442. We could do 442 and a half. We could do 442 and 3/8. You can see how this could kind of converge on infinity there. Or we could have maybe one note right in the middle. We could do two notes. We could do three notes. Well, as it turns out, somebody very, very smart a long time ago figured out that when you have 12 possible notes, that's actually kind of what sounds the best overall. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what it comes down to when how many notes were chosen for what we consider modern music today. Now, there are other styles of music. This is called Western music. Western music has 12 notes. There are other styles of music that do have different numbers of notes, but the most common type of music by far has these 12 notes. And so as we go down from A to the next A, we have 11 more notes in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Look how that worked out very nicely. So each of these lines represents, for my beautiful diagram, represents one note. And so the names of those notes are not simply the alphabet, it's close to it, and exactly why it's not just the alphabet in order, we'll get into in a little bit. But if this one is an A, well then from A we go A sharp, I'll explain more about that in a minute, and then we have B, and then we have C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and back to another A. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 total notes before moving on to the next one. So that's a very long way to answer the question. How many notes are there? There are 12. Now, a couple of other important things to note here while I have this diagram up is when we go from one note to the next note, let's say I play an A and then I go to the very next A sharp, that is called going a semitone. You moved to the right one semitone. It's also called a half step. Those two words mean the same thing. Or if you want to keep it really, really simple, this is what I call it. I call it one. Hey, move one note. All right, that's what I call it. All right, if instead we wanted to go two notes, let's say we wanted to go from this F to a G, well, that's called a tone, or it's called a step or a whole step, or what I like to call it is simply two, moving two notes. The other important word that you need to know that's very, very common is called an octave. What an octave is when we're switching from one set of notes to the next, all right? So if I'm playing like this C and this D at the same time and I want to go up an octave, that would mean coming up here and playing this C and this D. Or if I want to go down an octave, that would be coming over here. All right, let's put this diagram back for now. We may revisit it, who knows? And let's get back to the piano. Okay, so we've established that there are 12 notes in music. Now let's go ahead and relate that back to the piano. On a piano, these 12 notes, like I showed you on the paper, they just repeat themselves over and over again across the entire piano. There's actually 7 sets of these 12 notes with just a few extras on either end you can mostly ignore. So here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total octaves on a full-size piano, okay? So let's go ahead and focus in on one of these sections and go ahead and learn the names of these 12 notes. So we'll start with this one here right in the middle. So the white note just to the left of any two black notes is always a C note, all right? And then the white notes are all just letter names. And then when we add something to it, remember I mentioned the sharps earlier, we also have flats. Those are the black notes. So let's just focus in on the white notes for now. And we do go consecutively down the alphabet if we're just sticking with the white note. So this is C, and then we have D, E, F, G, but the alphabet starts over in music. This does not just apply to the piano. There's no H and beyond in music. And then we have A and B. All right, so those are the 7 white notes. Now, the black notes, they're named after the white note they're next to, okay? So if a black note is to the right of a white note, it's a sharp, okay? So right here, this is a sharp, a C sharp, okay? But black notes are all next to 2 white notes, so they actually have 2 names to correspond with the white note they're next to on either side. So this is C sharp, but it's also D flat, okay? So right means sharp and left means flat. The best way to remember that is right and sharp both have 5 letters in those words, and left and flat both have 4 letters in those words. So C sharp, D flat, then we go on. This one is D sharp, and it's also E flat. Here we go, F sharp, G flat. This is G sharp, and it's A flat, and A sharp, and also B flat. So technically speaking, when we sharp something, that is moving it up 1 note, 1 semitone, or 1/2 step. Or if we flat something, it's moving it down deeper 1 note, or down 1 semitone, or 1/2 step. By the way, I've used both the word note and key when referring to these things that you see on the piano. Technically speaking, the physical thing that we press is called the key, and the sound that results from us pressing it is called the note. But oftentimes on the piano, you'll hear the words key and note used interchangeably. On other instruments, we don't really run into this. For example, on that ukulele I was playing earlier, or on a guitar, you pluck a string to produce a note. You're not playing a key on a ukulele or guitar. They're strings. But then later on, we're going to talk about songs being in a certain key or playing in a key, which is yet another completely different use of the word key. But we'll get to that in a bit. For now, just know that on a piano, calling what you press a key or a note is just fine. I just wanted to make sure you understood that.
So now that you understand how the sounds work and the notes work on the piano, the next step in this process is putting multiple notes together and forming what we call chords. So that's what you have to look forward to in part 3, which you can find right over here. Or if you want to watch all 10 parts in one video, you can click on that right over here. I'll see you in the next video.